Arthur might need help from his brother to fight a bigger threat. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Aquaman. Half human and half Atlantean, Arthur Curry is Aquaman, the king of Atlantis and defender of Earth's vast oceans. As a founding member of the Justice League, he also protects the surface world from forces of evil. Aquaman's Atlantean physiology allows him to breathe underwater, swim at incredible speeds, and super strength to withstand the depths of the ocean. His royal lineage sets him apart from other Atlanteans, but also gives him the unique ability to telepathically communicate with marine life. Just before Aquaman trades blows with Black Manta, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is right now in the theaters. Let me know down below in the comments section if you've seen the film already and what you guys think of it. The figure, though, stands about 7 inches in height, or Aquaman's about 18 centimeters tall. Still having that other Aquaman from the Snyder Cut Justice League wave, we can bring that figure right now for comparisons. Now, I know that this figure has legs a little bit closer together. This one has a wider stance. But you probably can already see as well that the original one that we got from Justice League is, though, taller than the newer one that we get here. And while I do think that the hair is a little bit better handled here on the newer Aquaman, I still can't help but think that the older one has a better likeness to actor Jason Momoa. I'll bring in closer inspections on the head sculpts more in a moment. You may also notice there's a freed up space on the other side of Arthur. Let's bring in the tactical suit Batman. Speaking of Justice League, I should have really brought in the Justice League Batman, but I did also want to bring in Ben Affleck because, like, this is the closing of, like, the DCU as it was before. At one point, there was also going to be a filmed scene. In fact, the scene was already filmed in which Ben Affleck and Aquaman seemed to have some sort of discussion on top of what appeared to be a bat boat. We see images and stills of it online. Unfortunately, it got completely cut from the new theatrical release. And while Warner Brothers cut scenes from their films, at least McFarlane's team didn't cut too much when it came to the accessories that come included with Arthur. Sure, yes, the figure comes included with still the same circular stand as always the case when it comes to the DC Multiverse figures. It has the same DC logo sizzled down below and one off neighboring peg that can plug into either one of his boots. So nothing's really new there. The figure also comes included with a trading card. And while you could still say it's source material, they're pulling it from, I'm guessing, a scene from the film. They've done it in such a way that it kind of comes across more like an animated cell. I don't really like this. I wish that instead it was actually more just a screen grab from the film. Some of you may actually like it because it looks a little bit more like a cartoon. It looks actually more kind of like a panel from a comic instead. I would have just preferred myself, especially when it comes to movie-specific characters, just do a screen grab, I feel, from the movie would have been ideal. We flip around, though, to the back. His real name is Arthur Curry. Here's a fairly substantial read-up. You can pause and read the camera, or you can pause it and read for yourself. I'm the one that's operating the camera. You can still and freeze the video and read it for yourself if you wanted to. It's the same thing I read at the beginning of this video as well. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that to my trading card sheets. And moving on then to the rest of the figure's accessories, he comes included with his trident. The trident, though, unfortunately is a little warped from the time it's spent inside of its clamshell tray. It isn't, though, as warped as, unfortunately, the one I still have from the Justice League release. This is sadly a casualty of sitting this inside of a bag and just basically storing away all my figures that aren't currently on display. The end result is usually things like this, especially being of softer plastic. Things like long tridents or any weapons anyways usually end up just getting warped. I mean, I'm sure I could probably just heat this up. Ultimately, though, this trident is just going to go back in the box. I just want to show you guys, though, what the difference was between the two. It's a much more simpler looking trident than the one we got here from Justice League, and it certainly is a lot straighter as well. This can fit in his hand, although I will say with the hands, they're using a very hard plastic. I had a real struggle actually getting it in his hand the first time around. I ended up heating the hand in hot water, but even then, the hand is such a hard plastic that cooling the plastic still results in now me having to wedge this back into his fingers. You can kind of use the end piece to kind of dowel your way through it. It really is just a case you need to get it past the point of the fingers and kind of around the thumb, but eventually you do get it in there. And just let me just put the figure down here for a second. Just get the trident around. It isn't so much the fingers that are the problem, it's just the thumb. The thumb gets in the way, and of course with the amount of time that I've had to have this cool before I hit record, the plastic is now cooled again. Oh, bummer. So we're going to go ahead and just get that into his hand. There we go. Finally got it in place. Let's just get the hand back onto the peg. I will be displaying, even though I had my other Aquaman stored away, I will be displaying at least this newer Aquaman on my shelf. And looking forward to definitely getting that Black Manta opened up. That is not only the reason for why I wanted to get this wave, but also the main real reason why I also want to see Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom. With that, of course, in his hand, on the other hand, he basically just has a closed fist. Now, what he does also come included with, if I can get just the figure to stand, he comes with a pair of relaxed or gestured hands. Okay, I mean, I'm sure they probably could have used something else for the plastic instead of just giving us these. I mean, they aren't even really relaxed hands. You can see kind of the way that they're bent back like this. They're kind of more like dynamic hands. If you wanted to, yeah, again, you just take the hand and remove it from the provided peg and just get the new hand and just plug it in place like that. So again, if you wanted to have, I mean, it kind of looks like he's got jazz hands. I don't know. I'm just not loving, whenever they use hands like this, it also seems like the hand is a little bit small as well. I think really, if given the choice, I know normally I'm one that doesn't really like the idea of closed fists, but I feel like this time around, if the alternative is this, I might just default it back to the closed hand instead. You know what? I'm just going to do that. I'm going to unplug that, plug the original hand back in place. Well, be careful also, too, when you're changing out these hands, and be especially careful of when you're removing the trident, because I find like these hands free themselves very easily from the pegs. You want to make sure that you're not losing any of the hands in the process. Getting that back in place. Okay, so let's get a closer look now at Arthur. Now, I really like this figure from the standpoint of the hair. I think also his skin tone works a little bit better than perhaps the original one that we did get from the Justice League wave. The thing about it, though, is I feel, I don't know. In one ways, I think that the face shape makes more sense on this head sculpt, but I feel like the face features look better on this head sculpt. You can let me know down below in the comment section if you agree or not. The hair, I think, is considerably better, though, on the newer Aquaman release, even adding the little bit of the blonde coloring that he has at the bottom of his hairs. I think it's just a better-looking head sculpt. It looks maybe better for him on the side. Maybe it is not much from the front. Again, the only thing that really was the problem with this guy, it wasn't so much, again, like the sculpting. I feel like the paint kind of just made things a little bit too dark around his eyes. Again, you can let me know down below in the comment section which you guys think is the better looking head sculpt. Now, this one does have more of the gold armor that he has at the end of the first film, kind of more resonating with the more classic look to Aquaman. I love the scaling effects. I don't think any of this really has been painted. I would imagine it's probably just been molded in his coloring, because obviously even if you look at the hinges, for example, they're using pretty much the same sort of coloring of plastic as well. The scaling does look good. I don't think it really necessarily needed any wash of paint. I'm usually always one that advocates the idea that companies like McFarlane really needs to add a lot more paint to their figures. But I feel like with Aquaman, with the way that they've sculpted it as nice as they did already, I don't really think it necessarily needed any more paint than what there is right now, which is basically none. He does have at least the gloves, and those are nicely done in a metallic gold paint, metallic green paint. And that same almost similar color of green is also down below here for his leggings. He's got these skirts that almost are, well, a softer plastic skirt that he has on the sides of his legs. And of course that familiar Aquaman symbol there on the front. This again isn't painted. Maybe if anything, while this didn't need to be painted, they probably could have gone and just touched up some of the areas here, because in a way like this does look a little unfinished. It's molded nicely, but I think it just needed a little bit of pizzazz. A little bit of extra paint would have really helped to pop the features a little bit better. I like the way they've actually textured the legs, given sort of this woven texturing. The musculature looks really good on Aquaman's legs as well. And then we get down to his boots. It matches sort of that same metallic green that he had in his gloves. The only thing I had a problem with mine is getting out of the packaging. See how he has, like, basically, if you look at his boots, they're basically like fins that are wrapped around the backs. This one point isn't so bad, but getting this one out of the packaging, I have a really warped, see, there's this little lip of plastic. Because these are just such thin pieces of plastic, you may have something similar with yours. I may just have to go in there and heat that up, I think, with a hairdryer, just to straighten that up a little bit more than what it is. All in all, it's a good-looking Aquaman. I mean, again, it doesn't really have much in the way of paint, and I feel like his head sculpt looks maybe better from the sides than it does maybe as much from the front. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy for thinking that the original Aquaman was considerably better. I mean, again, like, his forehead is a little off on the original release. This one, I think almost like the head shape is, again, better on this one. But I think that the facial features look maybe a little bit better on the original one. I don't know. You can let me know down below if I'm crazy. For the figure's articulation, though, Aquaman does have a ball joint for the obvious reasons of having longer hair like this. it's going to make things a little bit more difficult when it comes to him moving his head. I mean, it clears at least the shoulders, and at least for anything, it's softer plastic. But moving the head down isn't so much the issue, it's moving the head up. So if you want to get this guy, for example, in a swimming pose, getting his head any further past this point is going to be difficult. In fact, it's going to be impossible. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. The lower torso, just behind the belt, is also on a ball joint. You can take the arms and rotate them all the way around. Now, the thing about the arms, though, is you can already see the shoulders are attached here to the top of his torso. They're not usually, well, usually they're attached like right around here on the bicep. Because that's not the case, you won't be able to get a full rotation on the arms. If anything, if you did rotate it, there's always the risk and likelihood that you could tear the plastic right here. So I would almost say, even though while he does have arms that easily come out 90 degrees, the idea of rotating this 360, I would be calling you crazy. I really wouldn't be. Swivel at the bicep, though. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands do rotate all the way around. And when we get to the lower half of Aquaman, the legs do split out. And because, again, like these give you... there's enough tolerance, really, for the way that these are, and they're softer plastic, that you can do still a full splits with Arthur. And you can bring those legs, of course, forward. You can bring them back. He has a swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. He has what seems no articulation at all for the boots, so they probably would have just sculpted this as all one piece as a continuation to the calf. And then the ankles do move back and forth this way, and back and forth this way, with, of course, the much appreciated, always appreciated toe articulation. A good-looking Aquaman. I feel as if there was at one point maybe a gold label edition Aquaman that had the gold suit. Why do I feel like that figure existed? If it did, let me know down below in the comment section. Obviously, by the fact I never brought that figure in for comparisons, I don't have that figure if he did exist. But I do still have the original Snyder cut Aquaman that, of course, took the elements of what his original suit was and gave it a little bit more of a modern armored spin. I like the more classic look of Aquaman myself. He doesn't really have a lot of paint. I feel like the head sculpt is painted better than this one, but I maybe feel like, I don't know. Let me know down below. Am I crazy to think that this one had the better looking head sculpt and then this one is just painted better? But I do feel one thing that this benefits from, at least this figure, is at least a more straightened trident. I wish the same could be said for the original one that I still have. Well, I have been spending some time looking at the reviews for Aquaman and Lost Kingdom, and generally it is pretty lukewarm. The critics at least have praised the film for being visually stunning, and when there is action, there's a lot of it. They have criticized, though, the film for having some kind of weird bogged down writing issues when it came to some of the dialogue between the characters. There's some scenes apparently that make no sense whatsoever with the all general pacing of the film, but the fact it does have visually stunning scenes and hopefully it has a lot of action starring Black Manta, then that's enough for me. The first film for Aquaman was visually stunning. The idea of having big giant sea monster battles underwater, I thought was something we never had up to that point seen with any of the other DC films. I don't know whether James Gunn is going to want to do something very similar when it comes to his own film verse, but I actually like the first Aquaman, and I'm having high hopes, generally high hopes, when it comes to the newer one. At least it's going to have Black Manta. And if Black Manta is doing some just crazy stuff on screen, blasting Aquaman with his big giant goggle rays, that's enough for me. What do you guys think of the figure, though? Now, again, when it comes to the figure itself of Aquaman, I mean, we're talking here about the movie. The figure itself of Aquaman isn't that bad at all. I mean, it doesn't look as much like, I would say, Jason Momoa, but I mean, really, to be fair, honestly fair, when it comes to a lot of these movie tie-in figures, likenesses are sort of hit or miss. The Black Adam, for example, I thought bared a really strong likeness of The Rock. This one doesn't look as much like Jason Momoa, and I think the coloring, is maybe better than the original one we got from Justice League. I still don't know as to which one is a better looking head sculpt. Now, some would certainly say this one's painted a lot better, but does it still have a better likeness of Jason Momoa? You can let me know down below in the comments section. Now, this one is going to be part of, well, several figures that we are going to be looking at for the new Aquaman wave. The next figure we are going to be looking at, I wanted to obviously start the review because this is an Aquaman tied-in wave. Had to look at Arthur first, but the next one I can tell you right away is going to be Black Manta. I can't wait to get that figure out of the packaging. He's definitely looks, from what I can see, pretty cool in the packaging. I can only imagine how much more awesome he's going to be out of the packaging. But that figure review is going to be right around the corner to make sure that you're not missing out on anything that's happening on this channel. If you haven't already done so, make sure, of course, you hit that subscribe button down below and you're turning on the bell notification. As already mentioned, we are going to be looking at Black Manta in the upcoming review. But in the meantime, if you want your fix for DC Multiverse, popping up also at the very end of this video would be a playlist of other things I've looked at. That's all the movie tie-ins, that's all the comic characters, pretty much everything that McFarlane has done. You'll find it all on that playlist there. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.